All right, assalamu alaikum everybody for being here. I appreciate you coming. Jazakumullah khair for being here. I want to take the time and thank the masjid here for inviting me to be part of this program here today. If you can't hear me, maybe just come closer, move to the front. I want to thank both the parents here, both the mothers and the fathers and sisters and brothers for being here. My name is Abdulkadir Abdi. I'm a police officer with the Automobile Police Service. I'm going to be in my 15th year next month, inshallah. During my time with the Automobile Police Service, I've done different things from working on the street to running a community police center, to working with, some of you may have seen a few years back with the RCMP, and a couple of other programs within the Automobile Police Service. Right now, I'm working in this area as a patrol officer, which is anywhere from this area all the way to Manatek. So tonight, I've been invited here to speak to you about parents and youth and what's going on. So the first question is, why me? Like, what makes me different from some of the other people? And I think most of you probably will know it simply because of the fact that I grew up here as a young lad, as a young guy, but at the same time, I'm also a parent. I do understand the community in the sense of what you guys are experiencing and what's happening. There's a lot of stuff going on in Ottawa and in terms of youth in general. When I was trying to put together this talk, I was trying to figure out who is the audience. And the audience is very tricky. So you have mothers and you're going to have fathers. You're going to have people who've been here maybe the last 3-4 years. 5 years, 6 years, to people who've been here 25, 30 years. There's going to be people who are going to have very young kids, and there's going to be people who are going to have teenagers and even older people. So it's a very mixed group of people to try to put together a one-size-fit-all kind of a model. But tonight's program, I'd like to look at it from the point of view of our own sense in terms of being a Muslim community. Some of us immigrated here. Most of us have our kids that were born here, majority of us. And we're going through a lot, and we're not trying to figure out what's happening. So the first thing is, where do I even start? That's the first question. Does anybody have an answer? Where do I start? So this is going to be interactive. You know what that is? Meaning I'll be back and forth. So I'll be asking you questions. I hope you can give me an answer back. Sisters, I'll be looking at you and expecting an answer back as well. Same thing goes for the mothers. We're going to try to see if we can put some time towards the end for questions. There's a lot I put together. I do not believe we're able to cover most of it, but inshallah we will try our best. There are going to be some topics that we're going to go through very fast, and there's going to be some that we're going to spend a little bit more time. So let me start off with the first one first of all. Do we know how the system works? When I say the system, do we even know what happens in terms of what do the police do? What do police do? Catch people. So predominantly, a lot of the people think that that's what we do. And in fact, it is one of the things that we do, is we do go after, sometimes in policing terms, what we like to call people who are getting involved in criminal activities and behaviors. So that is part of our program. But when you look at the whole thing about policing, let me start off by saying the police is you, the community, and the community is the police. So the two of them go hand in hand. What I mean by that is the way the police system works is because we want it to work for you. At the same time, what we're trying to do is we're trying to help the community. So in other words, when you see us going to a priority call with the lights and siren, it could be a family member, it could be a friend that we're going to be taking care of, it could be a house that's burning, it could be a car accident, it could be a robbery in progress. But all of this is because it's you, the community that we're trying to protect. But the important thing is for the community to also work with us and tell us how we can be better, how we can improve, how we can look after our community. In particular for us as a community, I know some of the issues that we're dealing with, majority of it is a lot to do with young people. And that's what I'm going to try to focus on. So I wanted to get that right off there, that I want you guys to understand the police is your police, right? So you need to be involved. How does the police work? So there's a police chief and there's a police board. Just like AMA here, I believe they have a president and they have a board members. Those board members make the decision on the day-to-day operation of the masjid. The board is, Auto Police Services Board is the same thing. They have several people in there, approximately 7 individuals, that make the decision to as to what happens in terms of the board. Then they elect or they choose a chief, and the chief is the person who runs the police service, and the rest of us take care of business. That's how it works. So every Monday, I believe, of one Monday of the month, I can't remember if it's the beginning or the end, they have a police service board. It's open to the public. It usually takes place, they advertise it, it's usually at the city hall. You can go there, you can listen to them. So one of the things that I want to tell you as a community, if you believe that the police is a foreign entity, you're going to lose. You need to understand, if you're going to get ahead in this society with your kids, you want to fight for their rights, you want to understand how the system works, it's very, very, very important for you to get involved and understand how the system works. That's the first thing. Because when you know how the system works, you can better yourself. That's the second thing I wanted to say. In terms of some of the programs that within the Auto Police Service, we have everything from school resource programs. You're going to see some officers in the school. We have community police officers. We have detectives who investigate major crime. We have officers who look after gang members and some of the issues that are happening in the community. We have people who deal with internet-related programs and stuff like that. So there's a host of things that are happening within the police service. And the most important thing is for you to understand that everything that we do, we're not doing it just for ourselves. We're doing it because the community demands of us to do. So that's the first thing I wanted to talk about. The second thing is, what happens, for example, when the police arrests a person? Just let's look at that as an example. You have to know there's a court process. Then you have to understand what happens in the court. Then you have to understand what happens with lawyers. I get calls sometimes 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 12 o'clock, midnight from people from the community because let's say some of the young person has been arrested. And now they're asking, what should I do? Right? Because a lot of the times we do not understand how the system works. So that's very, very important for you to understand. I'm going to go through quickly to tell you, if I were to arrest someone today, let's say, for example, assault or break and enter or robbery, whatever the case is, once the person gets arrested, they are taken sometimes, not always, but sometimes they're taken downtown, where we have our jail cell at 474 Elgin. When they get there, they have an opportunity to call a lawyer. There's so many lawyers on the wall. They are free legal advice lawyers for people. That's part of their rights in Canada, that everybody gets a chance to speak to a lawyer. If you choose to speak to a lawyer, we don't tell you which lawyer because we can't sell a lawyer, but we can tell you these are the lawyers and you pick one. Once you pick the lawyer tells you what to do, what to say, whatever. We don't listen to the conversation. It's a private room. You and your lawyer alone speak in that room. The lawyer on the phone, we close that door. I stay away from it. I don't listen to what's going on. When you finish, you're done, I bring you out. And then you have to go into jail. So what happens after that? It goes through the system, the lawyer. So if you're dealing with any situation, know how the system works. When you go to the courts, there's somebody called a defense lawyer. The defense person looks after your interest. Then there's something you're going to hear, it's called the crown or the prosecution. Those people, they deal with the government side. So they're working with the police side. So you have to understand how that works. On top of that, you also have to understand how the resources work. this is sort of the basics at the beginning introductory level, because I really wanted you guys to understand the 101, because there's some people who do not understand how that even works, right? So if you call me at 1 o'clock in the morning, or 12 o'clock, or 11 o'clock, I cannot do nothing for you. The reason why is once your youth is with another police officer, that's an ongoing investigation. I cannot get myself involved because it's against the law. I can't get myself involved. The best thing I tell people when they call me is I tell them, listen, if the youth is arrested, make sure they call a lawyer. That's it. That's all I can tell them, is just make sure they get legal advice, and that's it. But then if you start telling me, oh, and he took the knife, it wasn't his knife, it's his friend's car, it wasn't, you're going in too much into the investigation. And I don't want to hear it. Sometimes I'll even hang up the phone, because the more you shouldn't be telling me, because I'm a police officer, right? So everything you're telling me, now you're bringing me into the investigation. So I may have to share some of that information, because you may tell me things that the other officer doesn't know. And that's why I tell people, no. So if you see me sometimes being like that on the phone, it's not because I'm being rude, it's because I don't want you to go too tough. No. Okay, stop. Just call a lawyer. That's the most important thing. Now, having said that, the reason why I'm here today is because I'm part of this community, and alhamdulillah, we're going to share information. So I'm going to start off by just talking a few things, first of all. Before I go on, there's a lot of stuff that I want to talk about. But for you, in terms of an audience here, let's talk about, by show of hands, what would you like to talk about tonight? Just by show of hands. Like, why did you come here? What are you expecting to hear? Because that's going to help me guide this. And by organizers of this event, I honestly believe that we may need another one for this one, because there's too much to cover the first night, especially for having 1 hour. So, by show of hands, does anybody have any expectations here tonight? Like, what did you come to? Yes, sir.
Yeah, because we're new here, just want to know the rights and responsibilities. What's our rights?
The rights?
And what's our responsibilities?
Okay, parents' right and responsibility. Okay, all right, no problem. Any other? Yes, sir.
The relation between the police officer, especially when he is a Muslim, with our community.
Khalid, can you ask him to get me a piece of paper, please? Just to write on.
Sure.
I have a pen. I just need a paper. Sorry, can you repeat that again?
The relationship between the police officer, especially when he is Muslim, with the community.
Okay,
Because
relationship
we saw you last in Ramadan with your friends here.
Yeah.
And we were so happy.
Okay.
But maybe some people, they were not here in Ramadan to see what they were going.
Okay.
Because lots of boys, they were lost, and you are saying to us, if you didn't find your boy, come and ask him.
Okay.
I don't know if you are remembering or not. Yeah.
I remember some, but not all of it. Any other questions from the sisters? Yeah. Go ahead.
What are the rights of teenagers? I know a family dealing with a daughter that wants to run away from home, and they said at the school that she's 16, so she has the right to run away. So I'd like to know a little bit about the law on teenagers.
Okay. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
There are students at high school who
Sorry?
smoke. There's students at high school who smoke.
Yeah.
How can we deal with that?
Thanks for that, sister, helping with that. Thank you very much. Go ahead. Smoking. Any other? Yes, sir.
So, officer, what are the particular challenges our youth from the community are dealing with?
Okay.
And how can we help them?
That's a good one. Challenges. Okay. All right. We'll just pretend these are.
What's the definition of youth?
Definition of youth? Depends on who you're asking. But we'll go with that. Okay. Okay, so I'm not going to go through this. I'm going to try to go through some of the stuff that I talked about at the beginning. So let's start off with even just the basics. Okay, so we're going to start off with young kids, because I see there's some kids who are young. So I'm going to go through this pretty quick, and we're going to go from there. So the first thing is, if you have young kids, even as young as maybe 14, 15, whatever that may be, it's very important for them to know who they are. So their first name, their last name, their address, their date of birth, their telephone, especially for kids under the age of 12, 11, 10, very, very important, just in case that we have to deal with them. So make sure you practice with your kids. Hey, Mohammed, if tomorrow something happens, what is your name? Like, how are you going to respond that to a police officer? So that's one of the things that I just wanted to talk about. The other thing I wanted to talk about in terms of the basics is ensure they know how to call 911. If you leave them, for example, they're home alone, do they know how to call 911? And what is 911, right? What is 911 for? If, for sometimes what happens in our community, we don't do this sometimes, but if, let's say, for example, something happens in an emergency, you're running out of work, behind, you're told to stay, you're driving Uber, and you've got a customer going all the way to Canada, and your daughter, you have to pick her up, and you're sending your friend Ali to go pick her up. So you're like, Ali, go pick her up, she's there. Her name is Marwa, go pick up Marwa. And Ali goes there, and Marwa doesn't know Ali. So the question is, how does Marwa trust Ali, for example? So you should have a secret password that only you and the child knows, that you share with them, and say to them, Marwa, if there's in case of emergency, if I send somebody to school to pick you up, or from somewhere to pick you up, and the teachers want to know, make sure, ask the person what the secret password is. If they tell you that, you know you have the right person. It's in case of an emergency. This community, usually, you're not going to experience maybe some of that stuff, but you never know. Just in case you experience, you have to be able to share that with them. Another thing with that is also in the mall. You're at Rita Center, your child gets lost. What should happen? So right away, you should be able to tell your kid, the first thing you do is you go to the nearest store. The closest store, you walk right in, and you say, hi, my name is Mohammed, I am lost. I lost my parents, they're in the mall, I am lost. First thing they're going to do is they call security. Security comes over, and the security is going to call the page, or whatever the case is. It's very important. Why I say this is because the kid could be wondering in the mall, they get tired, they get thirsty, they get angry, they get anxiety, they start maybe walking out of the mall. So you have to make sure that you communicate that with the kids. So what about school? Now we're moving from some of the stuff now, if we start moving right to the school stuff. When your kids are going to school, make sure they have somebody to walk with to school, if they're walking to school. It's very important to teach the kids to settle some of the issues, the dispute that they have, strictly from words. Physical, especially in Canada, it's not something that works. Oftentimes, it's going to get the kids into trouble. I always taught my kids since they were young about strangers. Strangers are people, trust me. I've been a policing for a while. We hear a lot of stories. There are people who will be driving around, sometimes looking for a kid or whatever the case may be. We have people who are very sick in this society sometimes. So you have to be able to tell your kids, teach them not to go with a stranger. And some of these people are professional strangers, and they're professional criminals, and they know how to attract young kids. Nowadays, what is it? It's toys. Hey kid, you want an iPod? You want a cell phone? Hey, you want chocolate? You never know what it is. All it takes is for them to get them towards them. So always teach your kids, if a person is trying to talk to you, you don't know them, yell, run away from them, say, stranger, help me, somebody's trying to talk to me here, I don't want to talk to them, someone is following them, whatever it is, do what you got to do, right? So you got to teach the kids about the importance of not talking to strangers and stuff like that. Sometimes again, I'm talking about the society that we live in, sometimes there are going to be things that kids have been down to them, criminal activities, sometimes sexual stuff, whatever the case may be, that they keep it a secret. They don't share that with anyone. And that's something that sticks with them, right? They may not. Sometimes it could be family members, sometimes it could be people who babysit. Sometimes they keep that secret and they don't tell. So it's very important for you to be able to develop confidence with your kid, to be able to to know that they can share some things that they need to share with you, whether it happened outside the home or in the community, whatever that may be. So there's obviously now, we start talking about some of the things that we have to deal with in terms of the home itself. Now you're home, you left your kid, like, what are you now thinking? What's happening here? So you have to be able to have some ideas as to what's happening. Is the kid on the internet? Is the kids watching TV? What programs are they sometimes watching? Who are they talking to? If they're you have to discuss in the issues of drugs and alcohol. You just have to be open with your kids. You just have to have a little bit of a communication and stuff like that, especially online. Nowadays, all these kids are all connected. It's very difficult to monitor them. I'm telling you right now, it's not very easy. But the best thing I find is the more you're open with them, the more you can talk to them, the more that you may be able to monitor them. Sometimes if you say, hey, what's the history? What have you been watching on the internet? Or what's your history on your online stuff? Can I see it, or can you show me, and stuff like that? It's very important. The reason why I say that is you don't want to be too creepy with the kids sometimes, right? You don't want to overburden them, right? Over-policing them, right? And by the way, just if I go back, the information I'm sharing here with you comes from a couple of sources. Number one, some of it's from the Ottawa Police Service. I took it from their website. Some of it is my own personal experience as a person who grew up here as a parent. And the other one is some of the research that I've done in terms of looking at other policing jurisdictions or other social service agencies and what they had to offer. So this is not like a perfect answer for everybody, but this is just kind of coming from my own personal experience. So this is in terms of the public right now, if you're out in the community and protecting your child. You cannot leave your kids out in the public on their own. And let me repeat that, because I have seen this. I have seen kids as young as 4 years old walking in the middle of nowhere. I've had a time where somebody actually brought a 4-year-old kid. I was not at the time it was my day off. In fact, I was in the park with my kid. But just a regular Canadian female just brought this 4-year-old Arab girl, and she asked me if I knew her. And I said, I'm sure the parents are somewhere around. Alhamdulillah, we were able to find the mother. And we had to actually walk. I made sure the lady stayed with me until we found the mother. Because you, as a man, you don't want to be stuck alone with a 4-year-old girl, regardless. 5-year-old, 6-year-old, 7-year-old. So I told the lady to stay with me until we located the mother, and we turned the kid over to the mother, right at the park. Now, I think what happened was, they were already playing in the park. The mother just went to the house to grab something, and she came back. It was innocent. I don't think it was really something she did it on purpose. But sometimes you never know. What happens? What if, alhamdulillah, that lady brought the kid, but what if somebody else got the kid? You just don't know what's going to happen, right? So you just have to always make sure that you're careful. At the malls, don't stay in the food court and tell the kid, Aisha, go to the washroom, come back. Aisha is 4 or 5 years old. Go, you know how to use it? Yes, go use it, come back. Hurry up, I'm going to stay with Abdullah, alhamdulillah. So you gotta have to be careful in terms of that, because what happens is, you don't know what's going to happen to the kid between the time they leave you and what happens in the bathroom. Some of us, we leave our kids sometimes with a babysitter. Who's the babysitter? Do you know who the babysitter is? Do you know the history? Do you know who they are? So just always, if you're going to protect your kids, you got to have to know whether it's a babysitter, whether it's a daycare. Again, that brings me to the school, getting to know the teachers who are working with your students, with your kids. It's also very, very important. At home also, having an emergency list number to call in case. So you got to teach your kid, hey Ali, if you need to get hold of me, here's the number. If I don't pick up the phone, here's Aunt Halima. If she doesn't pick up the phone, so the kid knows 1, 2, 3 what to do just in case he's by themselves at home. We'll talk about later on leaving a child at home and stuff like that. We'll discuss some of that stuff. The other two is something that I also just wanted to mention, is the safety at home itself. We live in homes sometimes, but the home environment itself can be very dangerous. We have stairs. Have you seen your kids running down the stairs? How often do you tell them stop? Why is it important you don't run up and down the stairs? I have fallen down the stairs, and wallahi, it was one of the biggest pains I've had. I had to go to emergency for that. I thought like I tore my tailbone. I wasn't running. I was carrying a laundry basket, and I lost my footing and I fell. Why am I saying this? Is because stairs are very dangerous. If a kid hits themselves, you can get a concussion, right? So you have to be able to teach the kids the safety at home. Do you have a fire extinguisher at home, even ourselves? Again, brothers and sisters, think about the environment we live in today. We live in 2019 Canada. There's a lot of things that you can go to get from Canadian Tire. So do you have a fire extinguisher? It's very, very important to be able to know that, right? Extinguisher. You have to be able to know if you need a first aid kit. If something happens at home, what happens? If the kid cuts themselves accidentally and now the blood is coming out and you need to put pressure and you need to stop, do you know how that works? And one of the things I like about this masjid, wallahi, is the fact that they do very good in terms of those areas. They educate the community very well. This is one of the things I like about a Sunnah mosque is they really do a good job in terms of educating communities about first aid, CPR, some of these workshops. These are very, very important stuff. So I'm going to start moving on to something else right now, which is, I think somebody brought it up earlier, which was what happens if, for example, your child goes missing. Okay, how many of you have had their child gone missing? Don't be afraid, we're not going to judge anybody here. Have you had your child gone missing? If you had your child gone missing, what did you do? And what happened? Do you remember? Anyone? Okay?
You look for them first and then you go look for it.
Very much the same thing. So basically, when a child goes missing, first thing you do is look inside the house. Because the police, where do we start with? The house. Why? Because sometimes the person or the kid is in the house and we find them. So sometimes what people will tell us is they'll say, and I'm going to exaggerate right now, they say, officer, I've checked everywhere. Nothing. I checked basement, I checked up and down, everywhere. Not here. Officer, not here. Then you say, give me 1 minute. You look around, you look under the bed, you look in the closet, the kid is there. So the first thing you do is check the kid around the house. Second thing you do is look around the neighborhood if you can. Third of all, find out where their favorite places are in the community. So if he likes to go to Tim Hortons near the house, go there, McDonald's, whatever it is, start off with those places. That's very, very important. If you can't find them, then you call us right away. We're going to come in. Please don't go to Walmart and call us from there. Stay home. Because remember what I told you? We want to start from the house. We don't want to start from Walmart. So you stay home. If the father wants to go look for the son, no problem. But somebody has to stay home because we're going to come home. Once we come in the house, we're going to look for the kid. Now, when the police gets to the house, it's very, very important that you provide us the following. Their description, what they were wearing, if they have any medical issues, last time they left, who saw them leaving the house. And by the way, it's not just kids. It could be adults. We had, one of the last calls that I had was an adult who had dementia. You know what dementia is, right?
Yeah.
That they had the dementia, they don't know the home, so they left. It was minus, I do not remember, 40 something. It was super cold. I could not be outside my car for not even 30 seconds. We were about to bring everybody. Alhamdulillah, the person knocked onto somebody. They saw a car with some people. They knocked on the window. They didn't even know where the home is, but then they said the last few letters of the address. And that's how the person kept driving them until they found where we were. When the person came home, we said, where did you go? They told us they went there. But when they were found completely opposite. So it's very important you give us any medical history we need to know, right? Because why we're doing this is we want to escalate. If we find For example, does the kid know the area? All these things are very important things. So when we come to the house, we will make a decision. Do we need to bring everybody to search for this kid or this person? Or is this something that we can look around and we're going to be okay? So that's very, very important when it comes to missing. By the way, do not wait for 5-6 hours and then call us, especially for a young person, right? If you believe, and by the way, you're the parents of the kids, you know your parents better than anybody. So if you know your kid is gone missing, this is very strange, you can put one-on-one together, call us. If you believe that he's probably playing, what is it called, PK 219, whatever they play nowadays, and he's playing at his friend's house, maybe you might want to wait a bit, but you don't want to wait for hours and hours and hours, especially if you believe this is a little bit out of the ordinary for the kid. So now we'll move on to something called Parental Responsibility Act. I think the brother over there was talking about some of the stuff in terms of responsibility. So any kid between the ages, first, and so I'll answer the same question about the definition of youth while I'm in this one. Definition of youth for us in terms of policing is between the ages of 12 to 17, right? 18 and over is adult, right? So that's very important to know. So here's the deal, and this is going to bring me the responsibility. There's something, it's called a Parental Responsibility Act, but even before I talk about that, if there's a kid between the ages that we just talked about, right? Anyone under the age of 16, sorry, in this case 17, 16 and 17 is fine, but anyone anyone under 16. So if I find, what's your name? Adil. If I find Adil anywhere after midnight, basically we have to apprehend that person, right? So anyone 15, 14, 13, 12, 10, 11, 9, after midnight until 6 a.m., if you're out and about, you're getting apprehended because it's we have to for the safety of the child. So responsibility, again, as a parent, one of your responsibilities is for these kids, it's your responsibility to be able to know where they are between those hours, every hour in fact, but after midnight. So if they're at shawarma here, there's a fight going on or something happens, we identify all the kids, we find out one of them is 15 or 14, it's after midnight, even half past midnight, 10 minutes past midnight, we can now apprehend him. So what does that mean now? Apprehension doesn't mean the kid is in big trouble. It really means that if we find that this kid who's 11 years old or 12 years old is now walking around in a shawarma place or getting into a fight somewhere, sometimes some of these cases involve CAS, Children's Aid, and they get involved and now the situation becomes, okay, somebody comes to your house, finds out what's going on, and so on and so on. So you just have to be aware of that. Something known as also the Parental Responsibility Act is if you're a young person, if your son or daughter or something breaks something, and whether it's a damage or whatever the case is, the parent is financially going to be responsible for paying some of these damages. So you have to be aware. So if Ali is going to, it's the summer or whatever, and he's hanging out with his friends and they decide to throw some rocks and they break somebody's car or something like that, once we find the kid, the parent is going to be held responsible for that. So something came about earlier about the kids as well in terms of 16. So for this one here, we're just going to do a little bit of an exercise. Where's the guy who was organizing the event? You're the volunteer here. Khalid son, stand up here. You, sir, yeah, stand up for a second. If there's anyone under the age of, if there's anyone less under 20, leave this room, go with him. If you're 20, or if you're over 20, stay. If you're not over 20, go with him. He's going to take you to the hallway and around the corner and read you a lullaby. Okay, yalla, 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 move. If you're under 20, get out. Even you, the guy who's doing the recording.
Come back when you're 20.
I pretend I'm under 20 or
You can stand up, Khalid. You fit the definition of youth.
in mental health, we have delayed adolescence, so beyond 18.
That's right, and you can jump in anytime. Okay, so then they can close that door. All right, so the reason why I wanted to get these guys out of here is you just have to understand, in Canada, anyone over the age of 16, they're on their own, right? If your daughter says tomorrow, Mama, yalla, yalla, I gotta go, I'm out, 16 and up, there's really nothing that we can do. We can help out in the sense of whatever, but the person has the right to, if she decides or he decides to go and live with his cousin, decide to rent an apartment, whatever the case is, they can do that. So if I come in, you can call me and tell me she's missing. So let's say, for example, you say Khatra is missing. We need to find Khatra. I say, okay, how old is she? This. Okay, oh, yeah, no, okay. We say, all right, no problem. We have a missing person section. The missing person section does the investigation. They find Khatra. She's living in the house with two of her friends. We talk to Khatra and we say, Khatra, what's going on? Khatra says, nothing. I'm just going to school and I have a part-time job now and I live here with my friend. Anything else, officer? Nothing. Can I tell your parents where you live? No. You don't have to tell them and you don't have to share anything with them. Thank you, officer. Can I help you? Anything else, officer? Thank you for coming, officer. Have a good day.
That's it. Is that right?
Khalas. So the question then becomes, what do we? Because this, by the way, this workshop was only supposed to be for parents. That's why but it's okay. So if you brought some of the kids, but there's some things I couldn't get into too much with them being around. That's why.
Bring them back.
Just if you want to bring them back, okay. If you want to entertain them, please do something else with them for now, just for a few more minutes. Just give me 10 minutes, if you don't mind. And the reason why I say this, yeah, the only reason why is because there's going to be some. So there'll be a workshop coming up just for them, but this one we wanted just to be the adults and stuff. So the reason why I talk about this is, I'll be very honest. In this country, one of the things that I'm going to get into too much into is following this issue of we talked about the Parental Responsibility Act. Curfew, I talked about the curfew, which is basically the one we talked about, which is midnight until 6 in the morning. For anyone under that age, they can be apprehended. Let me see. There's one other stuff that I wanted to talk about. There's going to be people who are always going to talk about leaving. When can I leave my kid at home? That always happens. You get that all the time. When can I leave my kid at home? Or who can babysit my kid? So these two things. In policing, we really do not get too much into it because there's the CAS website, Children's Aid Society website. It has a lot of good information to tell you, by the way, you know your kids better than I. So if you have a 14-year-old boy, you know he's sometimes the worst person to take care of the kid. You may have a girl who's 10, and she's probably the best to take care of it. But the thing is, with the ages and stuff like that, you have to look to CAS. In their website, they'll give you very good information. I was able to look at some of the thing. It says it's against the law to leave children under the age of 10 to care for the siblings or children. This I got from the CAS. Some of their recommendations that they had for us. There's a really good page I found from Halton Children's Aid Society. And I'm going to share that with the organizing committee here to make a copy of that because it will answer those questions perfectly for you guys. So then that way it's not necessarily coming from us as a police service because we don't necessarily get into, because that's subjective. It's your kid, You have to know the law, how to take care of your kids, because the Children's Family Services Act says that you have to provide safety and security and provision for kids between the ages of 12 to 16. And so you have to look after them and so on and so on. So who you're going to leave, who's going to look after your kids, really is going to come down to your responsibility, right? Some of the stuff that I wanted to get into here is also in terms of this thing called now teens and technology, right? I think some of the people wanted to know a little bit about that. Teens and technology. So right now, as you know, every girl or a guy has a cell phone. And every girl or a guy has a data. And everywhere you go, there's a Wi-Fi, including the library, right? So what happens is these kids are going to have so much access. Last night, I saw 14 different apps, and I'm going to give those to the organizing committee here as well to make a copy, and they're going to tell you what all those 14 different apps, everything from Instagram to Snapchat to Twitter to all these things, all of them. There's some that I didn't even know. Of the 14, there's probably about maybe 7 or 8 that I never heard of it before. But they know it. Some of them are dating sites for kids. Some of them are ones that they call, what is it called? Like, you know, thumbs up or thumbs down or something to that effect, where you kind of rate somebody's likability and stuff like that. So when I say kind of dating site, it's not like an organized dating site because it's illegal, of course. But what I mean is they'll be able to relationship-based kind of sites where you know that they're getting their information. Can you send me a picture? Can you do this? Can you do that? That leads me to this thing called the sexting thing, right? Some of you probably heard what that is. Right? So basically, this term sexting is really sex and text. Is really what it is. And that is now you'll have some people who are sending very much nude, semi-nude, or very sexually suggestive pictures of themselves to the internet, sending it to other individuals. So it's against the law in Canada, by the way, for you to be able to either receive or send or share any of those electronic video, text message pictures of individuals or young people. Adults over 18, what they do, who they send pictures to, these people do all kinds of interesting things where they agree to each other to send pictures of them doing all kinds of stuff, so that's a different story. But if you're now trafficking in the young people's pictures and sharing it and sending it and sending it and making it, that's illegal and you will be charged and it's against the law. But even for the kids now, even if you're a young person, now you're sharing these things, that's also against the law. Now, what happens to, especially for young girls, I shouldn't say young girls, but for girls, one of the studies that I saw from the site that I looked at from Ottawa Police is they said 51% of the girls felt that they were pressured by a guy to send a picture, right? So, where does all this thing lead to, right? It's something that I'm going to come towards the end because I really want to finish that off with, but also something else while I'm doing this is I just wanted to talk about cyberbullying. So technology also, cyberbullying. Cyberbullying is, basically it's criminal harassment. It's harassing, it's criminal. It's harassing people online. So it could be anything from, you know, you look ugly to, oh my God, you're fat, or this and this, or I will tell everybody about this, or whatever that is. So what happens is, some of this is psychological, some of it is mental, some of it is really things that they want to bully you on the internet, online. And sometimes what happens is if your kids are not talking to you about these things, they may just keep it to themselves. So you have to be able to understand what's happening out there, right? So these are some of the things sometimes in the community, it may or may not be out there. If you have teenagers that have their driving license, also you have to understand to be careful, especially I say this for the boys because I deal with sometimes some of the boys more than the girls, is this idea of street racing, stunt driving, basically going over excessive amount of speed. And these things basically can cost them a license, 7-day license suspension, 7-day vehicle impoundment. The fines can go anywhere from 1,000 to 10,000 at the maximum end. So you have to be able to, all these things are things that are happening in our community sometimes that we don't know. Again, each one of these topics sometimes can take its own lecture. But I'm just trying to skim through as much as I can in terms of some of the things that I believe that will be happening in terms of our community. So the big thing now is going to be, what about relationship with your young people, right? The most important thing is going to be trust. If you do not trust your kids, you have an issue. I'm telling you right now. If you cannot build a relationship right now with them, because the reason why I say this is, if they cannot talk to you, they will find someone else to talk to. If they are afraid of you, they'll find someone else who will welcome them. If they're fearful of you, they'll find someone else who will tell them, don't worry about that. If you believe you're the only one who has a house, they can find 3 other people who may have a house, right? So you just need to be able to understand now, and the reason why I asked the kids to leave the room is because I want you guys to understand, as a parent, it's not easy, it's challenging, it's difficult, but this thing sometimes, if you have the right mechanism, tools, attitude, you're able to, it's like almost a chess, right? It's who makes the move? How do you make that move? Sometimes you as a parent, sometimes you have to lose, right? Sometimes you cannot always win the game of this thing. Sometimes you have to concede. Sometimes you have to be able to understand, okay, this one here, I may be a little bit behind on this one. So one of the other things that I wanted to talk about is their friends, right? Let's just say hypothetical scenario. I like to use hypothetical. Let's just say we had a child, Mariam, right? We had Mariam. Mariam, who's your friend? How old is Mariam? Who's her friend? What is Mariam's like? What is Mariam's dislikes? The friends are important because it's usually, if you want to know how your kids are doing, look around who their friends are. That's it?
And we can have another session.
Oh God, we're done already. 10 minutes. I was just getting started.
Okay, 15 minutes.
So,
Prayer at 7:30, but you got
oh, the goodies. Okay, no problem. So if you have Mariam, it's very important for you to understand her friends. What does she like to do? Is she involved in school? How is her grades? But all of this thing comes down to one thing, about how much you know about your kids. If you see a kid whose parents are involved with them, chances are things will go well. Most of the times, alhamdulillah. You have to be able to be involved with your child's issues. Are they in activities? Are they in sport? Are they in swimming? Are they in basketball? Are they in soccer? Are they in homework club? Are they here? Are they there? Are you with them? Are you with them? Are you with them? Right? If you're not part of them, the kid knows that. They know my parent is now part of my life. They know that. They can sense that. So what basically that means is sometimes for them they have to ask themselves, how much worthy am I to my parent? How important how important is my dad to me? How important is my mom to me? Do they drive, you know why? Because remember, some of these kids go to school and who do they see? Other kids are telling them what? Oh, I have soccer practice. I have hockey practice. I have ballet dance. I have this. I have that. And Maria comes home, I have to go to homework. And I have to go to homework. And I have ma'alim coming. And I have homework again. And I have ma'alim coming. And I have homework again. Homework, ma'alim, homework, ma'alim, homework, ma'alim. So what happens in this particular case is, the kid now goes back, and all they can share with their friends is not much. Because her friend, Tina, may not understand what ma'alim is, or may not understand some of the stuff. So she may not even share much. Meanwhile, these kids are telling them, oh, and guess where I was last weekend? We went to Rita Center and we went shopping with my parents. Okay. And where did we go March break? We went to Florida. Look at us. We're in a different ballgame, right? And the thing is, we don't live in our own little hub. We don't live in this world. We live in an integrated world. The kids talk. They share. You know, sometimes when you take a kid out, for example, you bring them into a nice restaurant, what's the first thing they do? Come on, help me, mamas. They take pictures of the food. They take a nice picture of the food, and they even set it up, arrange it. Why? Because they want to snap it, or they want to send it in their Snapchat or Instagram or Twitter or whatever. They want to send it right away because it's cool, right away. They go to a mall, what's the first thing they're going to do? They take a picture, they send it. Why? Because this is all image. Right? It's all about the image. There's one other topic that I'm not going to get into, because I'm telling you it's a big topic. It's a larger topic. And that topic is guns and gangs. That one is a big one. I have a lot of material for that one there. And in all fairness, I think it's better for us to come back another time and do that one. Because that one, it's a big one. On its own, it's a big one. And so I want to make sure that I don't rush that, because we're just given another 5 minutes to wrap this one up. So what I'm going to do is, in an essence, the question is, how do you become successful with your kids? Wallah, I think there's no perfect answer, right? They're going to hold their questions. My sister and her friend there. It is truly my sister, my actual sister. Who?
The kids.
We're going to wrap it up in 2 minutes, and then you can bring them up. So just give me a second. With the kids, here, I'm going to go back with the kids again. There's no magic answer on how you're going to succeed with kids. I have 3 of my own. Wallah, Allah knows best how they're going to turn out. It's going to be, it's one of these. You know, they say sometimes, I'm not going to use the dog thing, but there's a leash. You know what leash is, right? How much can you give them? We are bad. We're always... Sometimes, have it, because the kid knows you're trusting them. What did I say at the beginning? Trust your kid. Sometimes, you know what I'll say is, hey, do I have to worry about your friend? No, Dad. Perfect. Do I have to worry about where you guys are going? No, Dad. I'm good. What I tell my kids is, I say, especially the older one, the other 2 a bit younger, is I say one thing. She's 15. I say, do not surprise me. Why? Because my boss tells me the same thing at work. He says, Abdul, please don't surprise me. Just tell me what I need to know. So I don't like to get surprised. It's the best advice that anyone has given me. So I tell the same thing to my daughter. Don't surprise me. Don't surprise me. So why? I tell her, do you need something? Let's know. Do you want to go somewhere? Let's talk about it. Who's your friend? Do I know them? Right? But remember, you cannot be too creepy. What does that mean? Don't be too sneaky. Don't be too overpowering. Who is he? What is she? What are you doing? What are you? Because the kids are like, oh my God. Because the kids sometimes have to come to you. They need to run to you, not run away from you. So if you can understand to make the kids feel comfortable about, can I talk to my dad about this? That's when you know you're winning the game. If you know the kid is running. So no one is perfect. Wallahi, I'm not saying this because I'm an expert. It's simply because I worked at the Boys and Girls Club of Ottawa for 8 years before I joined the police service. And then I worked the police service. And then I became a parent. So all these things are things that I learned through the trials and tribulations. And who knows tomorrow what's going to happen? Allah knows best. But here's what I'm going to tell you. You don't have to be perfect, but you can learn. So how do you learn? Start today. How do you do that? Simple trust. Simple trust. And by the way, if you set rules, follow them. Muhammad, I'm going to take your PS tomorrow, wallahi, if you do that. He does it again. Muhammad, it's not going anywhere. There's no consequence. Make the decision, but don't make your consequences unreasonable. Habibi, don't say, I'm going to take your PS for the next 2 weeks. Maybe say tomorrow, after school, no PS. It's a small consequence, they learn from it, and they understand it. And you're not being too hard on them. So in conclusion, what I'm going to say to you is this. Inshallah, let's come back together in the next session. Let's talk more about, one of the brothers, your question about what are some of the strategies that we can do. Some of them I talked about. Majority of them is going to be communication and trust. Anything is in between that. Communication and trust. Do they trust you? Do you trust them? Do you communicate with them? Why? If you're not communicating with them, someone else is. If you're not trusting them, someone else is. If you're not involved in their life, guess who is going to be? If you're not going to take them to Rideau Center to Bayshore, if you're not going to take them to a nice restaurant they've never been, that they can take a nice picture, let them say, Dad, are you okay? That's fine. If your daughter or son is saying, Dad, are you sure you want to? That's good. You're making a progress. But if you think you're going to raise these kids in a box and you're going to keep them in that box, brothers and sisters, the box that's outside is more powerful and more stronger than the box that we have inside. So with that, I'm going to say, if you have, I think I may have answered some of the questions here, the rights and responsibilities, we can go forever, we can bring up some of the next time. Relationship you brought up between the police and my brother here in terms of me, I am always available. I come here sometimes, uniform or no uniform, you will see me. If you have questions, I get a lot about parking tickets, I get a lot about taxi drivers getting tickets. Ask me anything you can. Dr. Khalid has my number, the masjid has my number, I come here most of the time. Smoking, the kid, he's not here. He asked the question about smoking. Brother, you asked some of the challenges. We talked about some of the, it's all around us. It's all around us. We shall overcome some of this, but wallahi, the best thing is seeking help and talk. Don't be traditional. Don't be like, I am the father of this house, she has to do this. Those days are khalas. Now it's like you have to use a little bit of, you can't use the stick. It has to be more of, okay, who can I get help? Dr. Khalid, just so some of you guys know, he's a doctor, he does psychiatry and stuff like that. He works at CHIO and works with youth, young people. I would hope he can come and sit with us next time in our lecture and give us some of that, because he can bring in the psychological aspect of some of the stuff that we're talking about. I can bring the police part of it, he can add the other part. And we have a lot of resources. So you can get the resources that you need. We're here. You're not alone. The challenges are many. And finally, next time we come together, I want to talk about the guns and the gang violence. Jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.